Jason, how's your weekend? And I was like, it's fucking terrible. Jimmy G's dead.
It's like, oh, I just had a gun in my mouth for like 6 hours.
Just contemplated.
Took my head out of the oven long enough to come to work. I don't know how you doing, son of a bitch.
I pussed out and tore a hole in the bag right before I suffocated.
I was trying to kill myself with beer on Sunday. Jimmy, no!
Oh my god. Why? Everybody sober? Close enough? Alright, before we get started, no one is on the line here yet. What I'm about to propose to you is highly lucrative and highly spare. If that doesn't seem like your particular brand of vodka, help yourself to as much food as you'd like. No hard feelings. Otherwise, come with me. Alex Gomez has been on shaky ground in the Gridiron Gala Fantasy Football League the past 2 years. The last 2 weeks, we've rigged 2 of the worst losses imaginable. And this week, we're gonna give it to him again.
Straight up loss, huh?
Slightly more complicated than that. Alex Gomez typically has the confidence of Pitbull on PCP. But when it comes to fantasy football, it's a bit of a different story, and we're gonna rob him of all the GM confidence he's got left. First, we have to create a distraction. A lot of fantasy owners' eyes will be like glued to the Minnesota-Buffalo matchup. I think it's time to call in a favor from Cousin Kirky.
Got it.
That should buy us some time to have our contact in Miami tranquilize Kenyon Drake. Best case scenario, he'll be sleeping with the Goosies. Next, we have to make sure Alex has hope. So let's be sure Drew Brees puts up some points. A couple Atlanta DBs have some debt we can call in. Let's make sure they turn Drew Brees into 04 Michael Vick.
The Michael Vick spin move is essential, dog.
Finally, we have it to be seemingly just out of reach for his opponent Fralis. We let Juju and James Conner get some yards, but nothing to threaten Gomez at 91 points.
But what if they score?
They won't. And that's the point. It's going to end with the Steelers and Mike's 2 players scoring 3 extra points on a meaningless drive to salt the game away.
Sammy Ocean, 3 extra points doesn't get Gomez a loss. It's a tie.
That's the beauty of it, kid. To truly break his heart, Gomez loses on a tiebreaker. We kill Gomez's spirit without breaking a sweat.
So, say we get Kirky to throw the biggest upset in 23 years as a distraction. We give Kenyon Drake the old Bill Cosby treatment, and he puts up a dud. We get one of the slowest quarterbacks to get 2 rushing touchdowns, and we ensure Connor and Juju score 3 points on the very last drive of Monday Night Football. We're supposed to just waltz out of there without Gomez killing himself?
Yeah.
Okay.
This summer, coming to a shitter near you, Ocean's Ocho, starring Brad Schick, Don Cheadle, George Booney, Scat Damon, Julia Bloppers, Andy Sharcia, and Bernie Crash. Tune in to see this summer's ultimate adventure for friendship and laughter. Will they crap out when the chips are on the table? Find out! This summer, Ocean's Ocho.
We need to get some African children with AKs.
What, you listen to Toto and then you just talk about African children?
Well, to be fair, I've been talking shit about Africans long before I heard of Toto.
Those damn Dutch.
An unfortunate schmelding accident.
You're drunk. The Rush Hour Podcast. The Austin Power. It's
dedicated.
one thing. It's Rush Austin Power Hour.
Austin Power Hour. So you take a shot of beer every minute while quoting Austin Power Lines. Power Lines!
Oh, we're done. I'm going to sleep, guys. We've peaked.
Austin Power Hour Lines.
You're just doing coke the whole time. I made a Laffy Taffy, motherfucker. This is a Dodge. Yeah, we're drunk, if you guys are wondering.
So I'll be Sammy Ocean, and you'll be every other line that isn't Sammy Ocean. Ready? Channeling George Clooney. The Clunes. The Clune Army. Fuck you, bitch.
Fuck you, bitch.
And we're back to another episode of the Dual Threat Podcast. I'll be your host, Sam Nix, with my co-host back in action, Nor Sandu, with JB behind the glass. We're here to bring you Week 3 action from the NFL. We'll get right to it with news and notes from around the Gridiron Gala.
News and notes and hoes, let's do this.
All right, Nor, let's break down some notable waiver wire additions from last Wednesday's blind bidding deadline. Keelan Cole acquired by Kevin for $16, who dropped Robbie Anderson. Cole finished with just 4 fantasy points this week. What are your thoughts on this transaction?
The old wizard trying to pull another fast one on everybody. For now, it doesn't look like he's going to get the upside of it, but knowing Kevin, this will be the lowest score he gets for the next 6 weeks.
Okay, how about Giovanni Bernard? This one surprised me. He was nabbed by Jason, JB behind the glass, for just $2 and could be a multi-week starter. He scored 14 points against the Panthers in Week 3 with the absence of my Joe Mixon. How much of an impact could this pickup have moving forward?
You know, these types of pickups happen when you've got the blind bid. I think everybody assumes someone's going to bid up on a guy. They're like, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to let him go. And JB slides in and gets him for a nice $2. I think for at least a couple weeks, especially while Mixon's out, as you said, Bernard's going to be a viable starter just based on volume, if nothing else.
Okay, and finally, Corey dropped his boy, Mike Wallace.
Where the fuck is Wallace?
Okay, so this got to be for something big. You don't just part ways with somebody, even if they're almost out for the year. But I was shocked to see it was for a pickup of Dez Bryant. What is happening here?
It's typical, Corey lottery picks, except he is once again mistaken already discarded toilet paper as lottery picks. I think he's just trying to see if Dez lands anywhere. Maybe he gets a free red zone target receiver, if nothing else. But Corey likes to make his peculiar adds and drops one by one, just like the Sand People, because that's how you hired your numbers.
Okay, well, that's all the major waiver wire transactions from last week's blind bidding deadline, so we'll go straight into our matchup review section. Matchup 1, Jason versus Kevin. Man of the match. Saquon Barkley has been a measure of consistency this season, and Week 3 was no different, as he finished with 17 carries for 82 yards and a rushing touchdown, tacking on 5 catches for 35 yards, ending with 17 fantasy points. Not a game-breaking effort here, but in such a tightly contested matchup, Saquon's consistency proved to be the difference.
So good and tasty.
Biggest disappointment.
Yeah, jackass.
David Johnson put up his first usable stat line of the season, but upon closer inspection to the numbers, his 12 fantasy points were inflated by the receiving touchdown scored. Otherwise, his usage, 16 total touches, and yards, 61 total yards, had to have been disappointing and the cause of much concern for Kevin moving forward. Overall thoughts. It was a tight matchup with a razor-thin margin, but Jason found a way to milk consistent performances from a majority of his team. The hole at quarterback on Jason's roster is magnified by Jimmy G's torn ACL in Week 3.
No, God!
But solid performances from his skill positions like this may be enough to carry him until a replacement is found. On the other side, Kevin takes a tough 101-98 loss here to Jason and seems to feel the pressure of making tough start-sit decisions with his receiving core as starting Sanders or Godwin this week over Brown or Cole. The Brown-Cole combo would have netted him the win. It remains to be seen if Kevin can right the ship heading into Week 4. Both teams head into next week at 1-2.
It's great to see JB get off the schneid. Yeah, got that dub. Overall, the balance has been pretty promising for Jason, I think, for a couple weeks, and he's been able to really feel it with this matchup. I think he even had a couple guys on his bench that, if they were plugged in as starters, it would have done just as well. So it goes to show you that his team is a lot more solid from top to bottom. For Kevin, it's truly amazing how his fantasy team mirrors the Green Bay Packers, because all the pressure on Green Bay, it's all Rodgers reliant, right? Everything goes through him. As soon as he goes out, the team does not look anywhere near as good. For Kevin's fantasy team, same thing. His workhorses need to be firing on all cylinders in order for him to get his maximum potential. Also combined with the outstanding start and sit decision making that we've seen at times, it's a whole lot of pressure to deal with every week. Tough to do it all the time.
All right. Matchup 2, Corey versus Tony. Man of the match.
Man of the match.
Calvin Ridley was a man possessed in the Falcons shootout against the New Orleans Saints, absolutely scorching the Saints secondary to the tune of 7 catches for 146 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. That is 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks for the rookie from Alabama, and Ridley most certainly outshined his Tide teammate, and it will be interesting the dynamic moving forward. Biggest disappointment.
You're absolutely useless.
Much was made about the fate of Corey Clement and his practice squad status throughout the week. Tony elected to keep the backup runner and start him in his matchup against Corey, but Tony couldn't have been pleased with his 4 fantasy point output. In this close matchup, this dud really must have been deflating for Tony. Overall thoughts. It was a good effort from Tony's squad, but it appears without huge performances from Howard and Brown, Tony just doesn't have the firepower to stay competitive. Corey was carried this week by a breakout performance of Calvin Ridley, but Patrick Mahomes and Ezekiel Elliott remain consistent performers. Both teams carry question marks in the next week, but Corey is second in the league in scoring at 2-1, while Tony drops to 1-2, scoring a pathetic 71 points per game.
Yikes!
You are one pathetic loser.
The Corey Clement angle, coupled with Corey trying to pull a fast one on the taxi squad earlier in the week. It's funny that him and Tony played against each other when they were trying to apparently take full advantage of the taxi squad while, still having to bite the bullet with it. But you said it, Calvin Ridley was the talk of the matchup, really. Not a lot to say here except Corey's clearly got a new team name on his hands. Ridley's, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Matchup 3, Gomez versus Morales. Man of the match. James Conner was on his way to a disappointing performance as he had only 13 yards on the ground heading into the 4th quarter of Monday Night Football. But the Steelers rode Conner to grind out a victory against the Bucs, and Conner had 48 yards on the ground in the 4th to finish with 15 carries for 61 yards and 5 catches for 34 yards. It was a clutch performance in prime time and secured the victory for Morales.
Correct. Yes. Affirmative.
Biggest disappointment.
What the fuck?
It may be full panic mode on Kenyon Drake as he finished Miami's victory over Oakland with just 5 rushes for 3 yards and 2 catches for 7 yards, compiling 0 fantasy points. Drake's touches have dropped each week, and it seems like the Dolphins have no interest in committing to a traditional run game, electing instead for trick plays, wide receiver carries, and odd formations, which could spell disaster for Drake's value moving forward.
I don't give a damn about no damn Drake Knight.
Overall thoughts. Fate is a cruel, unforgiving mistress, and this year she has chosen Gomez as her lifeless gimp. After losing as the 3rd highest scoring team in the league in Week 1, losing to Will Dissly's heartbreaking garbage time touchdown on Monday Night Football in Week 2, and now this. A tiebreaker loss with the Steelers' James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster gained enough yards on Pittsburgh's final drive to salt the game away to give Morales enough points to tie Gomez. This has to be a crushing loss for Gomez as he is now 0-3 while Morales moves to 2-1.
Man, this one hurts even to discuss. Gomez, I feel for you. I've been on the wrong side of a tie-break loss. It's really fucking terrible, for lack of a better term. The Drake issue, just as you alluded to, it's really odd, for lack of a better term. I think that if they were up big and he was getting carries, but he didn't really need him for the overall flow of the game, that's one thing. But they were doing, it seemed like, everything humanly possible to break the game open while not using Drake. So really, really strange. I don't know, hoping Gomez can take his way out of this, but this is a tough one.
Matchup 4, Areola versus Sam. Man of the match. This week started off with a bang as Carlos Hyde exploded under the new-look Browns offense with Baker Mayfield under center to the tune of 23 carries for 98 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, ending with 21 fantasy points. He was the clear workhorse in the backfield, and the future of Hyde's potential in a Mayfield-led offense is exciting to see. Collect call from...
We got a baby eats a boy.
Biggest disappointment.
Not mad, I'm just disappointed.
It has been some time since Carson Wentz took part in NFL action, and it showed as Wentz shook off the rust in the Eagles' win over the Indianapolis Colts, finishing 25 of 37 for 255 yards, 1 passing touchdown, and 1 interception with a fumble loss. Wentz's 11 fantasy points were costly, as Jared Goff's 25 fantasy points rode the bench and would have been the difference in this matchup. Overall thoughts. There were questions entering this matchup, as I had to make some uncomfortable starts due to injured players, but they paid off in a big way as Carlos Hyde and Kerryon Johnson scored a combined 31 fantasy points. It will be interesting to see how the gaps can be filled during the bye-week gauntlet, but a strong 3-0 start affords a bit of wiggle room. Areola had stud performances from Mike Evans and Christian McCaffrey, and Alex Collins' 21 total touches have to have been encouraging. This is a solid team that has a bright future ahead despite the now 1-2 record.
I gotta admit, Sammy, tip of the turban to you, my friend. You have been navigating some dangerous waters with all these injuries, but coming out on the right side of it. I don't know how you're doing it, but you're making it work. It'll be exciting to see how long you can keep it up. As you said, Mike's team is well balanced and should be able to rebound from this. He really did make a push for it on Monday night with Mike Evans really doing some damage. At any point, were you a little verklempt, a little scared what might happen?
When Areola texted me and said, Sammy, if Evans gets one more touchdown,
you know what's going to happen.
And then the exact next play, Evans was targeted deep down the right sideline by Fitzpatrick. And luckily, Steelers double covered him and it got swatted the ball away. But there was some puckering going on when that ball left Fitz's hands.
I mean, he was going for it. Fitz was like, I know I don't got this job on Monday, dog. I'm throwing it all over the yard.
Yep, and we saw Evans make one of those incredible catches earlier in the game, so I didn't want to repeat. All I needed was 7 points, so.
Yeah, that type of game he was having. Just getting near him was kind of scary probably for you.
Luckily, we had James Conner to salt that thing away, so. Matchup 5, Slater versus Noor. Man of the match. Todd Gurley showed why he was the #1 overall pick in many drafts this summer, finishing with 23 carries for 105 yards and a rushing touchdown to go along with 5 for 51 through the air and a fumble lost. Gurley's 19 fantasy points were enough to overcome poor performances from many of Noor's starters and has played a large role in Noor's hot 3-0 start.
Feeling hot.
Biggest disappointment. Many owners are disappointed in the performances of their Minnesota Viking players this week, but few have to be more disappointed than Slater in Stephon Diggs' 4-catch, 17-yard performance just a week after proclaiming him a top 5 wide receiver. The sting is made extra painful by the fact that Noor started opposite mini wide receiver Adam Thielen, who hauled in 14 catches for 105 yards. Better days ahead for Diggs and the Vikings offense, but the fail was real in week 3. Overall thoughts. Slater's up and down season continues as he almost halves his total points from last week. It seems to stem from a lack of consistent production from the running back position. With Ajayi out, it has left a large void in Slate's production. Good to see the emergence of Kenny Golladay and Big Ben put on a nice road performance for a change, but these weeks may be too infrequent for Slate's liking. On the other side, the juggernaut Noor finds a week to overcome Kirk Cousins' horrific 3-turnover day and the husk of Pierre Garçon's 1-point performance with the stellar efforts from Gurley and Hunt and the Bears' defense and special teams. Noor remains undefeated at 3-0, while Slater drops to 1-2.
Oh, it's the juggernaut, bitch!
Silly bitch, your weapons cannot harm me.
As a proud brown man with 100 cousins, Kirk Cousins almost fucking killed me on Sunday. It was ridiculous. I'm sitting there watching him, and I'm like, this can't be happening, dude. Like, how many fumbles? Every time I looked up, it was like a new fumble was going on with him. You know it's a strange game when the starting wide receiver outscores his quarterback in fantasy. But everything you said about Slater's team, I'm afraid I gotta agree with. The weeks where his guys are on, I think he's gonna roll. He's gonna have next to no problem getting a dub. But other than that, he kind of does need everyone to be firing on all cylinders in order to close the deal. So, be interesting to see how it goes from here. We know at the drop of a hat, Slater can cook up a trade and send it off. So let's see if he starts wheeling and dealing.
Idiot! Get back in there at once and sell!
All right, so that wraps up our matchup review section. Let's move on to week 3's best and worst starts of the week. Best start of the week. A lot has been said about Corey, being a guru.
Boo.
Most of it coming from Corey himself. But his decision this week to play rookie Calvin Ridley paid off in spades as he finished with 7 catches for 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, single-handedly swinging the matchup in Corey's favor with a 32-point haymaker. Kudos to Corey and his start of Ridley this week.
Respect.
Worst start of the week. Isaiah Crowell had a great game by his standards, 16 fantasy points against the Cleveland Browns. The only issue was that Gomez sat someone with a much higher standard in Adrian Peterson to start Crow, and he paid for it with a Week 3 loss as Crowell was eclipsed by Peterson's 24 bench points and a tie. These missed points cost Gomez dearly.
So you're an absolute fucking moron.
All right, moving on to a new segment this week. Everyone is interested in the comings and goings of one of the NFL's premier players who is yet to suit up in the 2018 season, and that is Le'Veon Bell, in a new segment that we like to call Bell Watch. So welcome to a new weekly segment where we take a look at the high-profile NFL running back Le'Veon Bell, who, as you know, is currently sitting out due to contract disputes with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We want you, the listener, to be up to date on Bell's current status. So let's see what Le'Veon Bell is up to this week. Well, nor his new album, My Side of Things, dropped. One of the tracks on Bell's album is entitled The Table. And there is speculation that it is in reference to Buffalo Bills running back LaShawn McCoy in it. Per TMZ Sports, so you know it's legit. One line in the song is, "All these women want my baby, just please don't me pull a shady." Is that in reference to Shady McCoy? Discuss. On Sunday, September 23rd, Bell tweeted, "Sometimes a simple thank you can go a long way. I feel like too many people take me for granted," end quote. That's very deep and accurate statements from one Le'Veon Bell. Anyway, that has been this week's installment of Bell Watch.
Bell Watch.
All right, we're going to introduce another new weekly segment this week. We're very creative during the past 7 days, and it's a segment we like to give Jason a little catharsis. It's called JB's Crank Yankers. JB will prank call the victim of his wins this year after each weekly win. And this week, the lucky victim is one Kevin Wallen.
That's right, bitches. He gonna crank you and he gonna yank you.
What is happening?
Saquon Barkley, bitch!
And that'll do it for this week's installment of JB Behind the Glasses Crank Yankers. He's not even wearing glasses. All right, Nora, let's move on to everyone's favorite game show where we look at the potential of future performers and whether they'll be NFL studs, whether they are giving everything they've got right now and there's no more room to improve, or there's really nowhere for them to go and the ceiling is very low. America's favorite game show, Grower, Shower, or Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Did you say nowhere or nowhere?
Nowhere.
Am I a category?
Hey, Noah.
Hey, Noah. Hey, you want to go halves on a pie?
Hey, Noah, how about Carlos Hyde? Now that he has Baker Mayfield under center, what can we expect from Hyde moving forward? Is he a grower, a shower, or nowhere?
I'm going to have to call him a shower. I think this week we saw pretty much like what you can expect from him. I mean, there are going to be a lot more red zone opportunities. He's clearly the short yardage and goal line back, so I'm thinking he's a shower.
Let me tell you something!
Okay, how about Amari Cooper? 0, 11, and 1 point through 3 weeks this season. Is Amari a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
This is tough. This is tough, especially when you have 3 categories like this. I wanted to say he's a shower, like he's showing how inconsistent he can be throughout, those week-to-week performances. But given the pure, just confusion going on in the Raiders, I don't know. I've got to say he's a nowhere until he can string together at least 2 back-to-back solid outings.
He ain't going nowhere. He's going fucking nowhere.
All right, how about a significantly more talented player, David Johnson? Just had his best scoring performance of the season, but that's not saying much. Is DJ a grower, shower, or nowhere?
I mean, we've all seen his jockey ads. He's clearly a grower. I think given what David Johnson's been able to do in years past, if the switch to Rosen this week can jumpstart their offense and give them some life, I think he's a grower, meaning that he can go up from here.
Hold it right there, Magic Johnson.
All right, how about the hottest QB in the league, Patrick Mahomes? He's been on fire this season. Is there more? Is he a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
I don't think it'd be statistically possible for him to grow any further than he has. I mean, it's just 6 touchdowns the other week, and what seemed like a pedestrian game for him, he still had 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. So I gotta say he's a shower, meaning that he's showing everything he's going to be able to do right now. A grower, anything in the grower realm for him would be astronomical. I think he set the bar too high.
Okay, what about running back for Denver Broncos, Royce Freeman? He has had an up and down start when it comes to touches this season. Is he a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
It's kind of a tricky one. I feel like he's shown his potential for sure, but given the upside and more volume, he definitely has the ability to be a grower. So I'm calling him a grower. I think that if Lindsey's not sniping touchdowns from him, then he has a chance to really become a every down back almost.
Next thing I realized, my mouth is at maximum capacity.
All right, how about San Francisco running back Matt Breida? He had an impressive start to this young season. Is he a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
I'm gonna have to call him a shower as well. I think, as much as I want to call him a grower, giving the Niners fans something to watch, unless he can break off the long runs like he did 2 weeks ago, his touchdown potential is going to be kind of capped. And I think otherwise, based on volume, he's going to get a lot of the work between the 20s and whatnot. So I'm calling him a shower based on this last week, which was around 90 total yards.
Okay, Ronald Jones has 3 healthy scratches in a row. Is there any upside here? Is he a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
So this one's totally a matter of perspective. He's gone nowhere. He has not done anything yet. He has not logged a snap in the NFL yet. So it's hard to say he can go nowhere, as in further down from here. So I'd have to say, while he is nowhere, he's got nowhere to go but up. As soon as he, is wearing pads and can get in the game.
He's a grower.
All of a sudden, it became a bit more challenging to keep my teeth off the deck.
Kenyon Drake has reduced touches and production each week of this 2018 season. Is he a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
I hate to say it. I really thought he was going to be more in the shower category, but I think he's going to, I don't know. Last week's performance really just was so odd to me, and not just the way he performed, but just the way the Dolphins didn't need him to drive their offense, which I thought was everyone's presumption going into the year. So, gonna have to call him a nowhere as well.
Fucking nowhere.
All right, and finally, Derrick Henry. Been disappointing thus far, but is there room for improvement? Is he a grower, shower, or going nowhere?
Derrick Henry is a grower currently because the volume is going to be there based on the number of carries and stuff he's going to get. He's going to have the goal line work. I think in general, their whole offense has just been going through way too much of overhaul with injuries, with just poor performances in general from people outside of just Derrick Henry. So I think if everyone can get on the same page, he's got the opportunity to be a serviceable, starter-worthy running back. So I'll call him a grower for now, but he's on thin ice.
Because it's grown practically another 3 to 4 inches in length and another 1.5 inches in girth.
Okay, and that'll wrap up this week's segment, France's favorite segment of our program, Grower, Shower, or Nowhere. And now, moving on to the much anticipated Gridiron Gala Weekly Power Rankings. Number 10, Tony Funston, 1 and 2. Though it was close this week, Tony's scoring outputs won't look this impressive week in and week out. 73 points per game through 3 weeks with no real hope on the horizon. Number 9, Alex Gomez, 0 and 3. Though he has lost in heartbreaking fashion, he is the third lowest scoring team in the league, and Calvin Ridley's target share could impact his only blue chip player Julio Jones all season. Number 8, Alex Slater, 1 and 2. This week really showed Slater's glaring weakness of running back talent and depth. Ajayi's health could be touch and go all season. Where is the production going to come from during his absences? Number 7, Kevin Wallen, 1 and 2. Without stud performances from Rodgers, Johnson, and Kamara, weekly scoring output is going to be tough to predict for this team, and his decision to attempt to guess correctly on a 3 wide receiver set each week lowers these chances even more. Number 6, Jason Bercease, 1 and 2. Jason picks up his first win of the season, and the roster performed consistent from top to bottom. Losing Jimmy G hurts, as I don't think Derek Carr can be counted on to start moving forward. Number 5, Mike Arriola, 1 and 2. Mike tops the log jam here of 1 and 2 teams, as he has top-end talent players to pair with explosive players like T.Y. Hilton and Brandon Cooks. This team could be a nightmare if he gets into the playoffs with this high-scoring potential. Number 4, Michael Ferralis, 2 and 1, bringing up the rear of the winning records here. Mike boasts a talented roster overall, but some of the shine has come off of Week 1 studs James Conner and Keenan Allen, who have combined for 29 points in Weeks 2 and 3 combined. If these players bounce back and Mike can get a QB performances like he did on a weekly basis, this is a very dangerous roster. Number 3, Corey Hart, 2 and 1. It has been a lot of front-loaded weekly performances thus far in the season, but Corey has made a lot of sound start-sit decisions to reap the benefits of those big performances. With glaring holes at running back 2 being his only weakness, this is a talented roster from top to bottom. Number 2, Sam Nix, 3 and 0. A solid performance in Week 3. It was a coming out party for Hyde and Kerryon Johnson, who combined for 199 yards and 3 touchdowns. With new injuries mounting, let's see if I can keep the ship afloat and remain undefeated. And of course, number 1 in the power rankings and number 1 in your hearts, Nor Sandu, 3 and 0. No surprise here as Nor's dominance continues, averaging 120 points through 3 weeks. And this is only bolstered through Mike Williams' emergence this week. Talent is pouring out of this team as he goes 3 deep at running back and wide receiver to pair with 2 top 10 quarterbacks and a top 5 tight end. He will be a tough team to bring down week in and week out. All right, I've been given the thumbs up from Nor. I assume he approves of this week's weekly power rankings. For myself, JB behind the glasses.
Oh, my glasses.
And the man across from me, Nor Sandu. We wish you all the very best in Week 4, and thank you for listening to another edition of the Dual Threat Podcast. Saquon Barkley, bench.
Saquon in 60 seconds, dog.
It's a Saquon Bishop, bitches.
It's a Saquon Bishop.
She's a very